Thank you for joining us. My name is Joe Husky, Managing Director of the RBL Institute, and delighted to have you today to talk about some of the work we've been doing around the organizational guidance system. First, I want to just introduce Dave and Norm. You may know Dave and Norm. They are the co-founders of RBL Group, and we are thrilled to have them talking about some of the high-level results and findings we've had from the guidance system. For those of you who don't know, for the past probably 2 years, we've been doing a lot of data and research in the RBL Institute and the RBL Group in general. We've presented the findings of the HR competency study that we've been doing for over 35 years. And the other major study we've been doing is around the organizational guidance system, where we've been evaluating 4 different pathways around HR, talent, organizational capability, and the HR function. And we've created a diagnostic and made it available to our Institute members and to others so that they can get guidance on where to, best make investments in their initiatives. Nope, let me just get a mute here. Okay. So the purpose today really is just to give everybody an update. We've been running the survey now for about 18 months, and we've been collecting data. The data has been getting updated. We got a recent update of the findings, and we're going to share those with you today. So we're just going to give a little bit of overview and logic behind the guidance system, a little bit of overview of the pathways, and then the data that we found. And if you have questions or comments along the way, we encourage you to chat them or unmute, ask a question. And hopefully we have a great discussion, and that will get some new insights today. So Dave, I'll kick it over to you.
Hi, I'm Dave Allrich. I've met many of you, and it's nice to see your names on the screen and hopefully someday in person. It's been a long time since we've done this. For some of you, this is going to be review. For all of us, there's new information that we'll share about our guidance system and work. And as Joe said, if you have any questions, and everybody at this point knows how to use chat, put them in and we'll stop and see if there are questions or comments. You'll get a copy of these slides if you get a hold of Joe as a part of the Institute, and you can get slides. I'm going to take the lead and invite my partner Norm to come in and chat with me periodically to share ideas and hopefully get some ideas. Let me begin by saying what we're trying to do in the RBL Institute. What makes our contribution unique? And I think we want to make knowledge productive. What that means is we want to look at what's happening in your world and give you knowledge that will help you be productive. So what does that mean? We try to have theory. Why does this happen? A lot of times people in our field say, here's the phenomena, but there's no concept behind it. There's no explanation. We love research. We love data. We love insights and diagnosis. I look when somebody posted something on LinkedIn and said, here's the skills for the future of HR. I did research. And so I said, who did you talk to? The 20 people on LinkedIn whom I'm connected to. Well, let me be honest, that's not a very good sample. We love research, and we love thoughtful research, both hard research with data and qualitative research. And most of all, we love solutions. We are committed to actions that will help you, focused on you. With that in mind, what I want to talk about today, what we want to talk about are some ideas that will hopefully have impact for you. How do we improve human capability? And I'll talk about where that term comes from through a guidance system. I'll talk about how and why. We'll spend time on that. And then in black, I'd like you to begin to think about, as Joe said, there's 4 pathways where we've got theory, research, and solutions around what's new in talent, what's new in leadership, what's new in organization, and what's new in building an HR department. And then finally in green, what can you do to actually access this as part of the Institute membership? It's our commitment to help the field move forward. So I'm going to start. If you have any burning questions or comments, Joe, is there anything in the chat room to start with that people might ask? Because we want to make sure that we're responsive.
No, not yet, but I've put my email in the chat and put a note in to feel free. Just stop us or chat your questions along the way, and we'll be happy to address them.
Let's start with our goal is to figure out what's happening in the world today. Let's see if you faced any of these 5 issues. Have you faced any issues with the pandemic? Have you faced any issues with political posturing in your country? Have you faced any concerns about social injustice, refugees? Have you faced any emotional deficit concerns in your well-being in your life or your company. Have you seen a digital revolution? By the way, if you've got a 0 on all 5 of those, I'd encourage you to hang up because you're living in a bubble that we all want to live in. Frankly, if you've got all 5, you're part of the world. That's the context. That's the kingdom in some words. So what's the content? What is it the king or queen has to do in that kingdom? Let me talk about what's happening with business leaders. This is not an HR chart. What's happening in the world? Top left. Companies are paying more attention to the intangible part of market value. In the last year or two, it's been a trend for 20 years, but it's very strong. Up to 90% of the valuation of your company, either market value or debt. The Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC in the United States, last November required that a company report its human capital. And so Norm and I have been doing work in the last 6 months. What are those companies reporting? 6,000 companies have reported. Business Roundtable, a group of 180 global CEOs came out with a statement and a letter, Profit and Purpose. By the way, I think it should be profit through purpose, profit through people, or ESG, the future of capitalism, conscious capitalism. In Europe, ISO 30414, measuring human capital. The World Economic Forum at Davos. Human capital is an asset. How do we measure it? How do we lift the lid? And then all the way around the loop, the National Academy of Corporate Directors, senior executives, culture is your asset. What's going on? I believe that now is the time for human capability. And human capability, and I'll define that in a minute, is what's underlying the world we live in today. 2008 and 9 was the financial crisis, managing debt, managing cash. 2020 and 21 is the human capability crisis. How many of these initiatives have you tried in the last 2 years? We could do a contest, I won't, but just glance through. Retaining people, that's a hot one right now. The grand, what do they call it? Resignation.
Great resignation.
The great resignation. Pay for performance, agility, everybody's gog over agility, changing culture, teams, customers, social responsibility. By the way, if we had a contest, you've done a lot of those. So here's our question. With all the initiatives you've tried, how did you measure their effectiveness? Well, we put in place a workshop on diversity. Is that the right measure? We did an innovation academy. We did a leadership academy. How do you know that those investments, and those are some of the investments, how do you know that our 360 or our employee engagement, how do you know they were the right ones for your organization? That's the question that Norm and I and others have been asking for the last couple of years. How do we know that what we're doing works? Well, we start by getting a clear topology of where we're investing. I use the word human capability, not human capital. I've done this before, and if you've been with me, you're going to hate what I'm going to do, but you're going to remember it because it's the easiest way to define what we mean by human capability going forward. Human is my fingers. That's the red. That's the talent. Your workforce has competence, workforce, people. That's the people in your organization. That's the organization, human capital. But also in today's world, we turn our people into an organization. Competence is about people. Capability is about the organization. So human capability. We need to have a workforce, but we have to have a workplace. We need people. We need a process. Leadership is the combination. Good leaders manage our people and create the right organization. So we believe that in today's world, human capability is the agenda. It takes a complex world and organizes it into something that's more simple. Talent, organization, leadership, and then my forearms represent human resource effectiveness, the purple, the elements of HR. By the way, if I were in a group, and I'm going to be in a big group tomorrow, I don't think I'm going to have the courage to make everybody do it. It's a big group with SHRM's annual conference to say, we in HR have to manage people, organization, leadership, and HR, and make everybody wave their arms that way. But that's the agenda. That's the agenda. So what does that do? Look at all these initiatives. Suddenly, it's not an overwhelming mass. In red are initiatives related to people, referral hiring, team incentives, compensation, retaining people, pay, engagement. In green are initiatives related to leadership, the Leadership Academy, empathy. In blue are the initiatives related to organization, culture, strategy, social responsibility. And in purple are initiatives related to HR. I now have a way to organize the complex world. This is kind of like the 4 food groups. What are the 4 food groups? Now you can begin to build off those and make a difference. Once we have those groups in place, we can now look at analytics. We have seen 4 stages of an emerging 4th stage in the field of analytics. One is the scorecard and benchmark. We love to benchmark. How am I doing versus somebody else? In fact, every time I turn around, somebody says to Norm and I, well, who's doing that well? Who's doing that well? What are they doing? Tell me a good company. That is terrific if you want to learn about somebody else. The Harvard case study method is all about benchmarking. Let's learn about how Unilever does social responsibility. Let's learn about how Deutsche Bank does HR workday systems. Then we go to best practice. Well, let's benchmark. How do I compare? Who's really good? Who's good? Let's do predictive analytics. Why are they good? By the way, those have been the legacy of HR. How do I compare? Who's good and what made them good? We believe that the field of human capability, now remember, human capability is 4 things: talent, organization, leadership, and HR. Should not just be about scorecards, best practice, predictive, but about guidance. Guidance says what works for me. So instead of saying Unilever, they're a best practice in social responsibility. Wow, let's go learn what they did, predictive analytics. I'd like to go the next step and say, what should I do? What should I do? Leadership is not about what you do. It's about how does what you do help someone else do what they do better. That logic of guidance is not new to HR. When I was young, and many of you are still doing mentoring, you're giving career guidance. You're helping somebody figure out where they're going. As we get older, we get retirement guidance. How do I guide my retirement to have a lifestyle I want? We have investment guidance in our portfolio. We have phones that provide us guidance about diet, exercise. Missile systems have guidance systems. In the human capability field, we don't want to just describe what we're doing with dashboards and scorecards. We want to prescribe what we should do. That logic is just so changing. It is so changing. Diets. I've been up and down on diets. Those who've known me, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm all over. And everybody says, here's the latest diet, Noom or Neom or Noom or some new thing. Wow, look at this diet. Let me tell you what's more helpful. Dave, what's going to work for you? What's going to work for you? It's not what works for 50 other people. What will be right for you? That's guidance. Norm, do you want to make any comments about that logic of guidance?
No, I guess the only thing I'd say to underscore what you've said is, even when we go through this with, in my experience, the idea of benchmarking and best practice has such a hold on us as a profession that it's very hard to get people out of, right? So you finish, we talk about what is it that we should do? What is it specifically for us? And yet, the next questions are about how do we compare with others and who's doing the best practices. So it really is a shift, a mind shift to go from guidance, which is about your results, from, much less predictive analytics. I mean, the mind share in HR and for most of us has been around best practice and benchmarking.
And by the way, it makes sense. It makes sense. I have friends who've lost weight, and they love to share with me their best practice. Dave, you should go do what I'm doing. And I look and I said, I'm so glad that works for you. I am just delighted. But you know what? That may not work for me. And that's the issue of guidance. When we look at all these human capability issues, talent, leadership, organization, what can I do in my company to get guidance? Joe, anything you'd add to that?
No, I just there was Lauren on the chat just reinforced that, their organization is constant messaging to think about that and not fall back into the benchmarking mindset. It's very, it's very pervasive, very difficult.
And by the way, we write books. The last book I did, Reinventing the Organization. Here's 8 best practices in new organization, Alibaba, Tencent. Look at how much you can learn. Frankly, the better book is not look at how much you can learn from them, but what can you take from them to adapt to you? That's guidance. So if we're going to get into this guidance logic, you got to start with results. Really simple. We believe that any organization, this is not rocket science, it's not new, it's the balanced scorecard. You've got 5 results. You've got to get your employees to have well-being, to be competent, to have a good experience. Your strategy has to be differentiated. I'm just walking my way around these circles. These are the stakeholders. You've got to have customer results, a net promoter score, the latest thing. Now we're seeing more about consumer results. What's my customer value proposition? You've got to have financial results, cash flow, EBITDA, cash flow, revenues, profitability, shareholder value. And in today's world, you've got to have social citizenship, community results. That's it. Here's the question. If you've got those 5 results that you're worried about in a company, and these show up in your KPIs, some version of these 5, what can we do in the human capital area to make them happen? Now, remember, we've identified human capital in 4 areas. Talent. Do we have the right people, right skills, right place, all of the systems to manage our people well? Do we have the right organization, the capability and the systems? Do we have the right leadership? And do we have the right HR systems? We believe there's 4 pathways to deliver those 5 outcomes. So here's 5 outcomes. Here's the 4 pathways. Under each of those 4 pathways, we love theory, we love research, and we love action. We've identified a set of initiatives. In the talent space, we've identified 10 things I can do in talent. And again, you may not be able to read this for size. I can acquire talent, performance, develop my people, manage careers, communicate, diversity, obviously, manage departing employees, retaining employees, create an experience. In organizational capability, we've identified 12 capabilities you could build into your company. In leadership, we've identified 6 initiatives or 6 steps to building your leadership brand. And we've identified 9 dimensions of an effective HR department. Here's what that gives us, this question. Let's start with stakeholder results. Imagine you as an HR person meeting, that's the Canadian version of meeting. Imagine you as an HR person that was for Norm, who's Canadian, eh? Imagine you meeting with your business leaders and saying, and Bev, meeting with your business leaders, what's the stakeholder we're focused on this year? We're reinventing our strategy. Joe and I have just had calls with many of the Institute CHROs. What are you doing? We're trying to create a digital strategy. We're trying to create a new digital agenda. Super. How do you make that result happen because of talent, organization, leadership, and HR? Simple question. We're trying to build customer share. We're trying to get more revenue from targeted customers. Norm and I have worked with the healthcare system. We're trying to get patient care higher because of talent, leadership, organization, and HR. Or you're in HR. I'm trying to build a new leadership academy. What a great idea. So that what's going to happen? That's the connection of the 2, and that leads to this heat map and grid. You probably can't read it all, but let me just describe. This is the guidance system. There's 5 columns: employee, well-being, productivity, strategy, differentiation in the marketplace, a new agenda, customer, net promoter score, satisfaction, revenue, financial, cash flow, market value, social responsibility, the community. Those are my outcomes. You got 4 pathways: talent in gray, leadership in purple, capabilities in brown, and HR in whatever color at the bottom. We've identified 37 initiatives across those 4 pathways. 37 initiatives times 5 outcomes. That's 185 cells. 37 times 5. Here's my question, our question. where should you invest in those 185 cells? Kind of like an investment portfolio. Do I do Bitcoin? Do I do stocks? Do I do bonds? Do I do gold? Where do I make that investment? In the human capital space, we don't often have a clue. We don't have a clue. And how will I make sure that where I invest gets the outcomes that I care about? That's the guidance system. Are our investments in people and organization giving me clear results? And you know what? We can find a way to do that, to figure out in that grid where you should invest. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's cool. Norm comments or Joe comments, and then I'll ask the group. By the way, while they're commenting, you're multitasking anyway. Multitask on this topic, not the other stuff on LinkedIn. How well does your company do today at deciding where in those 185 cells should you invest? How well does your company do today? Norm, and write your answer in chat. Norm, and then Joe.
No, I mean, Dave, when I saw Lauren made a comment in the, or Laura made a comment in the chat, it'd be great to hear her response to that, because she's been doing that at Ascension. And if she's willing to share how they did that and what they were focused on, that might be. Are you willing to talk for a second, Laura?
Of course, I'd be happy to. Here, I'll even go on camera. How's that?
Nice.
So yeah, we have partnered and really leveraged the guidance. And I think just one of the most important things that we have to continue to emphasize is around impact, right? And so we went through an entire strategic planning process. When we talk about those 5 different outcomes, we worked with Norm, Dave, and the team to understand what's most important to us right now. And so, for Ascension, consumer experience is really where we want to tailor that and understand our impact. So once we understood that and all gathered around that, okay, for consumer experience, what does that look like? Then where does the guidance fall relative to the 4 pathways? And so I think, as we went through this exercise, as we got the results, again, helping understand and keeping on the forefront of that, it's not about benchmarking. It's not, are we doing good or bad right now? It's understanding if we double down on acquiring talent, if we double down on communicating with our employees, we're going to have the greatest impact towards that outcome area for us, which was consumer experience. And that's tied to our organizational priorities. So it really is helping us narrow in our focus. And I'm really able to connect this data, from the guidance to what we're hearing from our associates. And so that's been really powerful too, to be able to take it and say, look, our associates are saying they need more communication, right? And that's one of the guidance areas that we know we're going to have the most impact. We've been doing some other things, some listening sessions, et cetera. And this guidance reinforces what we need to be doing and helps us tell that story. So it's been really, really a good experience for everyone. And I think we have a lot more to do with it. But it's a great foundation for us to frame up our strategic priorities in this outcome area.
Thanks, Lauren. That was very helpful.
Norm, any other comments, or Joe?
Now, I mean, one of the things that's been interesting is how hard it is sometimes to figure out like which of the business results that the company wants to pursue, but having that conversation is really, really helpful, and getting outside of HR and involving the senior business folks is often a really important step there.
What's interesting to me is when we share this logic, we call this a heat map with business folks, they're going, haven't HR folks been doing that for decades? and they're kind of going, HR, I thought you did this so that when you came to me with a recommendation, you had data behind it. And the HR people quietly go, yeah, we're doing that really, really well. And kind of shy away. This is for us so obvious. The conference board now has picked this up. It's interesting with the conference board to move them from benchmarking to guidance. They still want to benchmark, but we don't want to just benchmark. We want to get guidance. What works for Ascension? And Lauren, thank you for sharing. What works for you might be communication. It might be acquisition of talent. In another company, it may be DE&I. In another company, it may be a positive employee experience. What works for you? That's what we're trying to create and to find patterns in that agenda. Joe, anything? And then I'll.
No, I think the most powerful thing to me is to, look at not just the initiatives and what we're doing in the four pathways, but focusing first on the columns. What do we want to achieve? Employee, customer, strategy, financial. Given what we want to achieve, then where should we focus or double down, like Lauren said? And I think that's, to me, the biggest clarifying logic of this is like a portfolio view. If I want a big return on my investment, where should I place my bets? And I think that's what this helps to do.
Again, I think we think HR is not about HR. It's not about the initiative. It's creating value to the employee, strategy, customer, financial, or community. With that in mind, and I don't see any comments or questions in the chat.
There was one comment on what do we, when you asked the question, how do we know how well our organization invests? You want to?
Yep. Let me show that with examples.
Okay.
We've got data. As I said at the beginning, we love theory. This is the theory of human capability. We have a theory of what it takes: talent, organization, leadership, and we have data. A lot of people talk about, oh, I love analytics. Well, here's our analytics. By the way, what we found in one of our last studies, everybody says, I love HR analytics. Well, we collected data. If your company does HR analytics, does it have higher business results? And the answer was no. We did analytics on analytics. By the way, the analytic people didn't like that, but we said, we have data. The takeaway, by the way, it's not about HR analytics, it's about business analytics. You don't want to measure the HR activity, you want to measure the impact of that activity on the business. So we have data on talent, leadership, organization, and HR. Which of these four pathways has impact on results that matter? Now I am going to make you vote. Because of time, we won't go through detail with all of those. But we have new data. This is the first time I saw the data 2 days ago, Joe, 3 days ago. We're updating this data all the time. So right in the chat, you want to talk about talent, leadership, organization, or HR. You got 20 seconds to write which of those four pathways do you want to look at. We'll give you some quick data on all of them. And then at the end, in green, we'll talk about how do you go forward. So which ones would you like to look at first? And we can go wherever you want to go. We can talk about what are the 10 initiatives in talent that will drive outcomes? What are the 6 steps in leadership brand? What are the 12 capabilities? What are the 9 dimensions of an HR department? So we've got a few chats. We'll let those who speak up get a voice. We are getting guidance from you. I'll let another minute or two go by while you get it in. Norm, if you were giving yourself guidance on weight loss, what would you tell yourself to do that may not be in all of other people's benchmarking and best practice diet plans?
Well, the only thing for me is peanut M&Ms at night if they're anywhere near me. The later it gets, the more I want peanut M&Ms.
And you know what? Guidance says you got to work that issue.
I got to work that issue.
You got to work that issue. Other people say, do this, do that, count calories, count this. That works for a lot of people, but it may not work for me. And figuring out what works for me is most critical. So Joe, which order should we go in? People have had a chance to put in.
It looks like, let's go HR and then organization. HR.
Super. And again, you can get these slides. Let's go to HR. We'll show you the heat maps, but I want to do HR and organization to show. So these are the 4 pathways: talent, organization, leadership, and HR. My fingers, and you're tired of that. In the slides, we have our basic theory. HR, and we've got 5 or 6 books on that and a ton of data. The right HR department, does it meet needs? Does it create value? How do you sustain those capabilities? In fact, I'm in the middle of a debate. Somebody in Germany posted this morning, Allrich's HR business partner model with the 4 roles is wrong. And I'm going, yeah, I wrote that in 1997. And we've evolved it with 5 new books and 70,000 new data points. The idea of an HR revolution is huge. We've discovered, and again, in the RBL Institute, you are our incubators. You're our think tank where we learn with you side by side. We've identified 9 dimensions or domains of a great HR department. Do we have a great reputation? Number 2, who are our customers? Who are we serving in HR? Number 3, what's our mission, our purpose? Number 4, I put in yellow because this is where everybody goes. How are we structured? Centers of expertise, embedded HR, service centers, technology. Number 5, how does HR facilitate the right organization and human capability for the business? Number 6, how do we measure our success? Number 7, how do we in HR design and deliver the right HR practices? By the way, you know it's live. I'm getting sun in my room. Number 8, do we have good HR people? And number 9, how do we build relationships to do our work? By the way, you can argue you've missed the dimension of HR. Those for us are the 9 dimensions of a good HR department. They can be done at 4 different levels. They can be done to drive efficiency, foundational, to do a best practice. What's our best practice in talent or staffing? To deliver strategy, or outside in to succeed in the marketplace. That leads to this grid. And again, we have four stages of maturity, 9 domains. Okay. Here's the heat map. We collected data. Take a second and walk with me. So if you've lost it, and Norm has seen this, I think, for the first time. So it's really fun to see the data. Look at those 9 rows. There's 9 rows of HR activity. There's a survey with 4 items for each row. How much do we do this? Column A represents the global mean. We had 799 respondents. Again, we like data. That comes from, I think, about 500 companies. Joe had that in his mind. Okay. That's the mean. By the way, that's where most people would stop. The mean in column B is the standard deviation. Where do we vary? So you look down column A and you say, wow, across these 500 companies, the lowest score is analytics. Look at row 6, 2.87. The highest score is our purpose, 3.42. Well, that's really good. Let's go bench 3, 4. We'll copy them. No. Don't go there. Look at column C, D, E, F, and G. In our study, column C represents employee outcomes, the well-being of the employee, the productivity of the employee. Column D represents strategic outcomes. How well does our company differentiate in the marketplace with a new strategy? Column E, how well do we serve our customers? F, how well do we do our financials? And G, how well do we be social citizens? Let's take one column. Who spoke up? Bev, pick a column. C, D, E, F, or G. Bev, just pick a column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can hold up your finger. 1, 2. Here's a picture I see. Just C, D, E, F, or G. 5. You know what? We've got to build our social citizenship agenda. That is such a key issue in the oil industry, in the lodging, every industry. So where in those 9 rows in column G should I invest? By the way, red, yellow, green, those are very simple colors. Notice all 9 have an impact. Red doesn't mean no impact. We got to change the colors on that. But look at where I'm going to have the highest impact at building my social citizenship reputation. I go down the high green, 16.9. I go across analytics. If I want to drive social citizenship in my company, the green, I should invest in HR analytics. I should invest in my reputation, and I should invest in better serving customers. That doesn't discount all the others, but it says those seem to be the ones with scarce resources where I should focus. Great job, Bev. Give me another column. Employee. You know, we are worried right now with the great resignation, employee productivity, employee retention, employee well-being. Where should I, as the head of HR, focus my attention, or a senior HR person, to get our employee results better? That one's kind of interesting. Look down column C, my reputation. I better build a great HR reputation. What I'm known for is an HR department so that my employees can trust me. The other one, I better build great relationships. Now, let me take a step back. And then I'm going to ask Norm to make comments. He hasn't, by the way, Norm, it's always fun. I think the last time we did this, we had about 500 respondents. Now we have 800. I'll see what you see in just a minute. But so look at the rows for a minute. You're a senior HR person. You're HR for HR. Where do I invest to build all 5 of those outcomes? And you know what? It jumps out at you. I better be building my HR reputation. Let's go back real quick. What is HR? Where's reputation? What is the department known for by its key stakeholders? I better be focusing on the reputation of HR, because look at those green cells horizontally, C, D, E, F, and G. They matter all. The other one is row 9. I better be building HR relationships. How do we in HR work with each other? It doesn't have as much impact on citizenship, column G, which is interesting, but it drives all the others. Now, let me tell you why I love row 9. This group in Germany is redoing the HR effectiveness, and their focus is 90% row 4. Let's change the design of the HR structure. Let's get rid of centers of expertise. Actually, they're new names in old bottles, but let's have squad teams or hit teams, whatever they're called. Let's go create these teams. Let's create this different organization structure. Look at our data. I can do a lot with row 4, the HR design, but if I don't have the reputation and the relationships right, I'm not going to get business outcomes. Wow. Norm, any thoughts? You've seen this, I think, for one of the early times.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to comment on the HR design one. I think if your HR design is off in some way, or it isn't fit for purpose, then then you fix it, and it can have really high impact. But this is showing again that man, if you've got the right organization in 4, then don't keep messing around with it, which is everybody's favorite thing to do. The other one that you mentioned is just the analytics one, which is some of the things that, I mean, if I was to pare it back, what the people's favorite things to do, which is design, and we have to fix our analytics, don't seem to have as much potential impact as some of the things that some of these other areas like reputation, obviously, and relationships. And it's not intuitive, or it's at least not what I see many organizations are sort of focused on the issue du jour, because I think it's because best practices are driving them to that.
Now, let me tell you why we call this a beta test. This is what our data shows for a global sample. 800 people, 500 companies. You know what? If I'm you, I don't care. What I care about is my company. And that's the beauty of a guidance system. You can now take this inside your company. And if you get 20 respondents on this survey, you can say, where should my company invest? In general, I should do row 1 and row 9. But in my company, maybe it's analytics. Go figure it out for you. But we've been able to show that guidance does work. Guidance works. Okay, that's the HR one. Any comments or questions?
There was a comment in there, and I'm not sure. I think but what has changed from the last time we reported with like the roughly 400 responses to the 800? And I think in the HR, it's not reputation, not much. I think relationships and reputation still were.
I think the same pattern. One of the things that's cool, when you start research, you start with high variance because you have a small sample. I mean, that's why you don't go to 20 people on LinkedIn and get a result, because it's just stupid. One person's weird and the whole result's off. We had 500 people and the results get narrower and narrower. I think now with 800 people, we're able to say with some degree of confidence, by the way, there's statistical words for this stuff. I don't know what they are anymore, but it's the degree of confidence you have in your answers. I think the pattern was the same, but I think the reputation and relationship showed up even stronger. Any comments from anybody else? By the way, think about what does that mean for my company? Option A, I can take those results and go apply them to my company. We'd love you to do it. Option B, I can take the logic and go do the survey in my company. The survey takes 15 minutes. Get 20 or 30 people to fill it out. You'll get this heat map. That will be your heat map. By the way, I'm betting with that variance, we're going to begin to winnow it in, and you'll see that, that the same patterns will emerge. Let's go to organization, if there's no other questions. I love organizations. I have OCD. Wendy, my wife, has told me I have I don't have obsessive compulsive disorder. I have organization compulsive disorder. I love to study organizations, see how they work, how they can be more effective. We have studied the logic of organizations, written a whole bunch of books on it. In yellow, there's been an evolution of organizational thinking. We used to think about organization as a hierarchy, your roles, your rules, we'd re-engineer. Then we had systems, the Jay Galbraith model, the McKinsey models, the 7S or the Org Health Index version today. Then we had capabilities. We've written about that, CK and dynamic capabilities, David Thiessen, The Economist. Now we have more systems where those capabilities help you succeed in the marketplace. A capability is simply what you're known for and good at doing. By the way, I had this list, and I'm sorry, Norm, I took out your list. We've identified 12 capabilities. Norm had a list that he has in his slides a lot. Norm, I'll name the company. What are they good at doing? It's your slide. What's Apple good at doing?
Innovation.
What's Oracle good at doing? Amazon.
Amazon customer connectivity, probably innovation.
Yeah. I mean, we've identified in our research, and Norm and I published this probably a decade ago, competing on capabilities. Talent, are we good at managing people? Agility, and there's a lot of examples of that. Do we move quickly? Strategic clarity, customer centricity, culture. We've identified 12. These are the capabilities that an organization might focus on to be effective. It's actually interesting if you were talking to your business leaders, and what we found in another study is that the ability to create business or organizational capabilities has more impact on business success than personal competence by far. Which capabilities do I build? Here's the heat map again. Look at the 12 rows: talent, agility, strategic clarity. This is my capability. Now we have 632 responses on this survey, probably with about 400 companies. Here's the average score. So you look down column A and you say, the highest score is customer centricity. That's kind of interesting across these 400 companies. The lower scores are in the low threes, innovation, which is kind of interesting. Standard deviation, but don't go there. Let's go back to your columns. Let's look at column E. Well, by the way, these are fun because you're getting now the idea of the heat map. Column C, we want to drive employee outcomes. Guess what? We ought to focus on the capability of talent. That's called a resounding duh. If I want my employees to have higher well-being and productivity, I ought to focus on acquiring, training, and developing the right people. Whew, wow, that's an insight. D, I want to build a better strategy. Guess what capability I need to build in my company? Row 3, strategic clarity. Duh. E, I want to get better customer share. I better build a capability of serving, row 4, customer centricity. What I love about this data is it confirms the capabilities and how they drive the outcomes we care about. The one that is amazing to me, and then I'll ask Norm his comment, is column G. I want to build social citizenship, diversity, reputation, ESG. Look down column G. The capability that drives 40%, 44% of social citizenship, those add up to 100. 44% of social citizenship comes if I build social responsibility as a core capability of my company. Look at that, row 7. Let's go invest in social responsibility. Our employees will be more committed. No, they won't. Our strategy will be more likely to happen. No, it won't. Our customers will have more share. No, they won't. Our profitability goes up. No, it won't. But we'll be known for social citizenship. Yeah, that's cool. That's an amazing finding. Okay. Norm, any thoughts jump out at you on that one? On this?
I mean, the over what, and again, if you go over to the rows instead of the columns, again, the impact of 3 strategic clarity, really pops out, as well as the high score in customer centricity. But what's amazing on this one, again, is just all the things that, that people often, I mean, most of the time when we think about what to do, we think about it from the rows, not the columns. So, retraining ourselves to say, what do we want, not what are we doing, is just so critical. And when you're looking for priorities, you get priorities here. And that's really cool, right? I mean, that's what we want.
Joe, any comments?
Actually, just looking at this again, I'm actually a little bit surprised. Pretty much collaboration through leverage technology, not much impact.
It's interesting to go in agnostic, and I'm not. I'm really annoyed that the right culture, row 5, didn't dominate everything, because I love to think about culture. But you know what? That's the beauty of data. That's the beauty of data, is it isn't just what I think, it's what this analytics tells me. So Joe, I'm with you. I think, wow, what happened to innovation? Norm and I have 2 colleagues who've done some great books on innovation. And it's going to be embarrassing to show this to them and say, you ought to not do your next book on innovation. Because it's not driving the outcomes that we care about. Others, I know, you got to get
the technology, we've been hearing a lot about digital business technology, and leverage technology is, at the global level, it's not as impactful.
Now, again, let me be clear. We call this a beta test because this is a global sample. In your company, innovation, technology, may be the dominant issues. So go find out. That's what guidance is. Norm's diet is going to, I am going to be so mean. On the next holiday for Norm, I'm going to get him a pound of M&M peanuts. I'm going to get him a pound of M&M peanuts, because I now know if he can, and by the way, this is out of love for Norm. If he can resist them, he can resist anything. By the way, that's guidance. Go find out in your company what works. Go find out what works. Let me do one quick aside, and bear with me. We're talking today about the guidance system, and I'll do 2 more heat maps. I'll do talent leadership quickly. We also have the HR competence study, and members of the Institute have done this. We want to give you knowledge up front. We looked at capabilities. We found 2 things. When an HR person can create the right capabilities, they have 8 times the impact on business results than having the right personal competencies. Let me say that again. If you in HR want to have a business impact, it's not simply knowing the business. It's not simply knowing latest trends in human capability. It's being able to create business and organizational capabilities. And we found in that work, we reported this yesterday. Guess what the capabilities out of that study show? Agility, strategic clarity, customer, culture, and social responsibility. The same ones. There seems to be an emerging pattern that these are the capabilities for the future. Joe, any other comments or questions? And I'm going to go to the talent heat map.
No, I think, we can cover the last 2 heat maps, and we got about 10 minutes. So we'll see if there's any questions after that.
I love this one. Everybody in HR is committed to talent. There's no question. We've got to get great talent. We've got to get great talent. Look at the 10 initiatives. Do we acquire people? Do we manage performance, develop people, DEI, careers, communicate, best practices, departing employees, the great resignation, employee engagement, or creating a positive experience? Where should we invest in talent to have the outcomes? Norm, you're seeing this for the first time. I'll comment a little bit. Again, I hope people are getting comfortable with the heat map. We have 609 people. Again, this is a beta test because it's a global sample, not yours. I look across the rows first. You know what this says pretty convincingly? When I pay attention to talent, it's who I bring in the room. Do I have the standards? Do I source? Do I screen? Do I secure? Do I orient? Am I getting the right people in the room? That's going to affect my employee outcome, my strategy, my customer, my citizenship. I don't understand column F, row 1, column F. I don't understand the low one on finance. But that's really interesting. The other thing it sort of says to me is I got to manage the bottom 2, employee engagement, my employee value proposition, and my employee experience. There's a lot being done about employee experience today. Do we create believe, become, and belong? Do we create an experience? Those seem to be the things that are critical. The other one I'd highlight, Norm, and then come back to you. Again, this is a global sample. Look at row 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everybody is committed to it. It doesn't have as much impact on the employee morale, the strategy, the customer. That's somewhat discouraging. It does have impact on our visibility and social community reputation, column G. Diversity is an important issue because it's part of our community reputation. Now, you can argue over time that has an impact. Norm, any observations on this one? And then we'll do leadership. And Norm, I'll let you lead the leadership one. But any quick observations for time?
I mean, I was just looking at the financial one, and it's kind of an interesting message, right?
Yeah.
So to drive financial results, what we need to do is, manage out the people that in number
nice.
8, then we need to create a positive experience and develop the ones that we have, and that'll drive financial results. It's kind of again, the stories that come out of this in terms of as you think about solutions or what is interesting.
For me, that's head scratching, but it's really interesting. You got to manage people out if they're a low performer. The joke we always make under financial F8, place your lowest performer in your competitor and tell them to stay there for a long time. Norm, let's go to leadership. We've written all kinds of books. We've identified 6 dimensions of leadership. Norm, go ahead. We've got 850 respondents. This is the biggest pathway we've tested.
Look at obviously, if you go to the row first, clarify business case is one that we know that, and maybe one of the reasons why it comes out so high is that in other work we've done in other studies, it's really uncommon to have a strong business case. And what that business case is, it's the leadership implications of our growth strategy, right? Do we have a pipeline? Are we trying to do transformation? Is our leaders ready? And then ensuring reputation. It's about communicating that business case, the quality of leadership to primarily external stakeholders, which often we more communicate internally about it. But those two going together is just such a strong message. And our favorite that we wish was higher was number 4, develop leaders in leadership, right? That's the leadership, a lot of leadership training and development kinds of issues may not be where to focus energy, at least on this aggregate data.
There was a LinkedIn post yesterday from a colleague. He said, so why does all the investment in leadership not produce results? And I shared this data because we're focusing on row 4 and row 3. We're assessing leaders and developing leaders. We're not building the case and ensuring reputation. I'm going to jump way ahead. You've just seen it. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for you? Well, and again, you can get these slides. Get a free report. It's part of the Institute. RBL.ai. And again, I'd love, if you're ever interested in statistical geekiness, I'm happy to share. We've got surveys on each of these 4 pathways. Leadership brand has 6 dimensions. Norm just went through 4 items, I think it is, for each dimension. We've done 3 iterations of that survey to validate the survey before we started collecting data. Capability has 12 capabilities, 4 dimensions or 4 items for each one. The statistics on those dimensions are good. HR has 9 dimensions, 4 items each. Talent, we have 10 dimensions, 4 items each. Those will take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to fill out. If you fill them out, you can get your report. How are we doing? What's my heat map? And your report will give you a sense of where your guidance should be if you did all of them like this. This is a company we just did 5 columns. Look at those 4 pathways. You can see the green cells. Here's out of those 185 cells, the 10 or 12 we had to focus on. I now have guidance. That's cool. That's cool. That's what guidance does. That's what we're about. I am so jazzed at this because I think this changes our field. We're no longer about benchmarking and best practice and predictive analytics. We're about guidance for you that will make a difference. And we believe that that's where this field should be headed. So let me not share anymore. We have just a few minutes left. We've covered a lot. Questions, comments. This was more a download. We hope you'll join the Institute or use the Institute as your service to make sense out of your report. Norm, final comments, and we'll turn it to Joe.
No, just hope you try this out. I mean, that's how to learn about it, and it's free. We'd love you to participate. So thanks for joining.
Well, it's not always free. It's part of your Institute membership. And we'll do a session in your company when you get your report. We'll share with you what we learned.
Yeah.
Joe,
Yeah,
we'll turn it to you to wrap up.
Lauren had a comment. Would you recommend reassessing after a few years using the guidance and focusing on impact areas? Short answer to me would be yes.
Well, my answer would be, how often, Lauren, does your stakeholder goals change? How often do your employee strategy, customer agendas change? If you're in an industry that's changing every 6 months, you got to keep up. If you're in an industry that's changing every 6 years, you don't have to do it as quick. So it would be tied to the pace of change within your industry.
Well, the other comment I make about that to Lauren would be that as you're doing solutions, you could, I mean, maybe twice a year, reassess to monitor the impact of the solutions that you're following. So one reason to reassess would be your outcome needs are changing. The other would be you want to see how you're doing.
Nice.
Just I want to thank Dave, Norm, and I want to thank everybody for taking an hour out to learn a little bit more about the data around the guidance system. As we said, it's available to use. You can go right now and take it if you want. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me about the guidance system, the HR competency study, the Institute. We're here to help you and serve you. So let us know how we can. This is recorded, so we'll make the slides available and the recording to all of you so that if you want to share it with your teams and give them a little bit of a background, that'll be it. We'll get it posted soon.
We got one more question.
Yeah, let's see.
I see the comment from Andrew. And Andrew, could we take your comment and broadcast it to the whole world? So if you're reading chat, Andrew, we love you. We give you a big virtual hug. We're going to send you 16 free books. Thank you, Andrew. We feel the same. We think this is, by the way, we just glossed over. There are so many, Norm's going to go, speed bumps. They're not cul-de-sacs, they're not enders, but this is not as simple as it looks at to do what we're trying to do. It is a major initiative, and we've been blessed to have incredible help to make it happen with many of you. Thank you. Joe, back to you.
I think we're right on the hour, so I just want to thank everybody again, and we'll follow up with slides and recording for those of you who are on the call. And if you have questions, just please reach out. We're here to help you and serve you. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks.